through the I was going to say January transfer window because I was reading something on my phone. We have made it through this summer transfer window. My goodness, what a start already. Hello and welcome to Heart Standard. My name is Joel Skett and I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Irving on this occasion. How's it going, Tom?
I'm not too bad. It's like you forgot who I was there for a second. It took you a minute.
That's because I get my phone is to my right hand side and I keep getting notifications. And I was reading something. Hearts just tweeted something about I'm not sure what, and I was trying to read it while also presenting, which is really unprofessional. How's it going?
Not too bad. Can't complain. Productive transfer window that's closed now, so less stress for us, which is good.
Good stuff. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It was a lot quieter transfer deadline day than I expected, and I think as Hearts expected, I think they expected another one or two to leave the club. Before we get into discussing the transfer business that was carried out over the last few months, and then we'll get on to talking about Alexander Schwolow, the German goalkeeper who was added. He became the 11th and final arrival for Hearts over the transfer window. Tom will provide a bit of analysis on him. The written analysis on that will go out tomorrow morning. My day's been a bit all over the place, so I've not got around to doing that, and my day was certainly all over the place last night with the addition of a puppy that is coming to the household for the next couple of weeks. But before we chat about everything Hearts, as ever, thank you very much for everyone who's joined to watch us. Please get your comments in and I'll try to get through as many as we can and get you involved. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube, please do so if you haven't done so. And Heart Standard is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. So earlier today, I put up earlier this afternoon, put up an article looking at assessing essentially the transfer window that's just been, and I popped up a couple of graphics within them. So this is the transfer business here. I've had to amend this because since writing that and since coming on, Derek McInnes spoke to Hearts TV and confirmed that Adam Forrester, not Harry Stone, Adam Forrester will return to St Johnstone on his cooperation loan. Interesting one, considering St Johnstone have now signed, they had signed the right back and in place of Adam Forrester, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on at McDiarmid Park. So I've had to amend a couple of graphics, but as you can see, the ins and outs on the screen. Ins: Alexander Schwolow, Christian Borkovic, Stuart Finlay, Oshimik McEntee, Thomas Magnuson, Agio, Alexandros Kaziridis, Saba Kirjota, Landry Kabori, Elton Kabangu, and Claudio Braga. Going out, Leo McFarlane, although he's returned from his loan at Alloa, James Penrice, Lewis Nielsen, Adam Forrester, Gerald Taylor, Aidan Denham, Macaulay Tate, George Grant, Jan Danda, Barry Mackay, Musa Drama. Tom, what is your assessment of the business that Hearts have carried out? And if you were to give it a rating, what would be your rating?
So I think we've had a pretty good window. And I guess we've been in this position a few times though, where we think we've had a good window and it doesn't turn out as good as it's happened. But we thought it was. But I think like just putting those up there in front of us, I think you can kind of see that in general the ins are probably much stronger than the outs. There's a few players on the right where I've got most of them I've got nothing against really. But like I said in a few video we did a couple of weeks ago, like it's pretty apathetic to a few of our players previously, and I think a few of them have left. Like I don't know, I don't want to single people out specifically, but I think just the players that were kind of there to make up numbers and didn't really do a huge amount, or potentially came in like Jorge Grant, George Grant. I always do that. And I think we thought he was going to be a pretty big player for us. I don't think he was a bad player for us, but he just didn't stand out like we kind of expected. And same with like Barry Mackay and stuff. We expected much more of a lot of them. We've already seen a lot of positive from the players coming in. I think if we're just looking at that list there, potentially you could argue all of them have had it. Well, most of them have had a kind of impact, apart from probably Schwolow. He's not played yet. Magnuson, he's not got much time on the pitch. Kuriota's not played much, and Kabore hasn't played much either. But apart from that, I think they've all contributed already, which is great to see. And I highly expect the likes of Kabore to be a massive player for us. Kuriota might take a little bit longer to get used to the league, I think, but I think he will again be a good player for us. And then kind of feel bad for Magnuson because we've got so many central midfielders now that can so many players that can play central midfield, as we see here. It's a little bit of a tough one for him to break into a strong area of the pitch, I think. But yeah, if I had to rate it out of what we're going out of 10, probably like an 8 or something, I would say.
Yeah,
strong. Yeah,
I would certainly be the high. We'll come to a couple of concerns that fans have had, but I kind of wrote about it. So you came into the summer and you're looking at where Hearts needed to, like the key areas that Hearts needed to strengthen, and so you wanted more pace in the final third. You wanted more attacking width. You wanted more striking depth. You wanted more physicality and presence. You wanted a right back, albeit that's an issue we'll come to. You wanted a box-to-box midfielder who can help create and score. And you wanted maybe a wee bit more pace to the defence. And as the summer progressed, you probably wanted another goalkeeper. All 8 of those boxes have been ticked to an extent, which is really, really encouraging. And I think I think that the club, in terms of financial backing and the work that's done with Jamestown, deserve a huge amount of credit for getting all those boxes ticked. And you talked about the comparing it to the outs. When you line them up against one another, it looks like on paper, and it's only on kind of surface level just now because we're only 9 games into the season so far, 4 of those against lower league opposition, but you can see that there's a step up in level. Like Musa Drama, bit part player last season, Barry Mackay, on the fringes last season, Jan Danda didn't, again, kind of bit part. George Grant was more important, but you've certainly upgraded in Agio, and with his addition, Macaulay Tate, young player, potentially a big future, gone out on loan again. Aidan Denham didn't feature last season. Gerald Taylor started very, very, very well, and then didn't just fell off. Adam Forrester was solid enough last season, needed loan time. Lewis Nielsen in and out. James Penrice, the biggest middle. Lee McFarlane didn't feature. James Penrice, the best player last season, but then you look at what Harry Milne's done and kind of stepped up and really filled that void. So there's I don't think there's an area of the team where Hearts have made a step back in. Now, I'll bring in some, I'll ask you this question and then I'll bring in some comments. Hopefully I'll keep an eye on them. But in which possession do you think Hearts are undoubtedly stronger than 12 months ago, or even just last season in general?
I would say probably 2 up front. The attacking areas, like the wide forwards, wingers / strikers, I think. Probably debatable wide forwards because we've not seen much of Kuriota, but I would say let's go with the central forwards is where we're strongest compared to this time last year. The last few years we've kind of relied on Shanklin to do a lot for us, and there's not been a huge amount of support for him or options. But I think if we were missing Shanklin for the next 6 weeks because he got injured or something like that, we wouldn't be panic stations. We would think, right, we've got Braga, we've got Wilson, Kabangu, Kabore, all that can fill in for him right there. So I think undoubtedly it's the central forward position for me. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so. Yes, I think so. I'm not going to say the strongest, but stronger. And I think it is I think that's what's probably the biggest area was last season was just in the final third, but especially just reliance on Lonnie Shanklin, that the lack of depth in that there, where if it wasn't him, then there was no one kind of step up. I think you've got a couple of guys not only can step up and fill kind of Shanklin's boots for one reason or another, but you've also got different profiles of strikers, so that's definitely been the big step forward. In terms of the depth, you go to like the strongest. You look at the midfield now with, I think just Agio just completely elevates that midfield, and then the defence. I think you've got 6 really good options at centre back as well. So yeah, it's definitely very, very positive. I'll bring in some comments just now before we move on. Use Your Disciple, it's been excellent. Include Islam Chesnikov to the list. Absolutely, he'll come in January. I think when you're looking at when you're talking about the wide players, I think he is perhaps the best of the lot, or the most exciting, or the most advanced of the lot to come in and hit the ground running. Tom, I certainly know that you've been a massive fan of him ever since you started watching him. Finder 407, very good window, however, squad is far too big. Would have liked to see seen more out the door. Also, right back is a worry. We'll come on to discuss those couple of things. There we go. Will Tom be doing an analysis on Schwolow? Yes, would be good to find out if kicking and dominating his box are strengths, as this would be very welcome. I believe you have written about his kicking, Tom, and I was going to guess that it's a wee bit more advanced, or maybe a bit better than the current.
Yeah, it's we'll get onto that in a second, I suppose. But yeah, it's I think he's very comfortable on the ball with the ball at his feet anyway. So that's a positive. Probably something we're looking at as well.
Yeah,
going forward. We're blessed with the likes of Gordon, who is ridiculous shot stopper, but I think he'll admit he's not the best with his feet, and he never has been. He's never been known for his kicking abilities and composure when the ball's at his feet. But yeah, I think we're probably looking for a more rounded goalie who can help us play it from the back and stuff going forward.
And that's something that Liam McFarlane is also very, very good at. One for the future. YouTube Disciple also says all our new players are attack minded, and kind of just brought this in just because something that's going to you have written, and it'll go up on the site either the end of this week or the start of next week, just about the similarities in the player, and there's a clear profiles that the club have looked for, and we'll do a video on that nearer the time. A couple have mentioned just about the size of the squad. A couple have mentioned, like Adam says, Schwolow's still a possibility. A few could leave via international windows. It also makes a point that 9 players out of contract in 2026, so there will be a big overturn at the end of next season. I
don't think the squad, it is pretty big, but it's only like I saw Celtic and Rangers posting their squads, and obviously they're in Europe and stuff, but it was about the same size as theirs. And like you said, so we've got Forrester's just left, so we're down to 32. Pollock's out long-term injured, probably I think until Christmas time, so that's 31.
Couple of the keepers will leave, are likely to leave, so that'll be like on loan. That'll bring it down to 29, and then
on top of that, we could still see some movement. There's still windows open where
exactly.
Potentially likes a Khartoum, even maybe half might leave, and potentially Vargas. Like the Mexican window's still open for I think another week. I think it is, and I think that's a league that he would love to play in. And there's lots of money in that league as well, so we'll probably get a decent transfer fee for him if he's going somewhere like that. Probably suit his style as well. So. There could be players going out. We could be left with, after loans going out and maybe 1 or 2 actually leaving permanently, could be left with like 28 or something, which is a perfectly fine squad size, I think. Yeah,
and it's, as Greg says, still the potential few outs listed some of the countries that are have windows open until at least Monday evening. And then there's the windows out with Europe that are still open. And Denton McInnes did mention that when he spoke to Hearts TV today, that there is the international windows are still open as well. Before I move on to the next question, Andy Jackson says, on the whole, if the players coming in appear to be stronger than those going out, that's a positive. Early days to see how the players adapt, but encouraging signs. Absolutely. And just in terms of right back, Fraser Blair asked, do you think Hearts will go into the out of contract market for a right back if Christian gets injured again? And Alan Young says, is there a chance we could bring in a right back on loan? I still think we are short here, prefer back in team midfield every day of the week. Well, we can't bring a right back in on loan because the window has now shut. And when you break it down, Derek McGuinness says hopes for Watching to be back in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Hearts only play 2 games in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So they've got Rangers after the international break, a week off because of League Cup action, and then Falkirk. And then so there's not a lot of games coming up that gives you a wee bit of breathing space. So I don't think it's I think think I seen someone on Twitter reply to me saying to describe a lack of right back as lunacy. I think what I'll wait to see with hindsight when we get to January, if Borchgrevink continues to have injury issues, then it's a big issue. But if he's back in 3 or 4 weeks and he stays fit, then it's not as big an issue as it certainly could have been. But definitely one to keep an eye on. Tom, what is your biggest? I'm just chucking these at you, so apologies. I should have messaged you to say these are the things I'm going to ask you. What is your biggest question mark from the summer window?
That's a good question. I don't think there's a huge amount of question marks. The obvious one is the right back, but I think, the obvious question would be the right back situation. But I think that I'm not too worried about it either. But yeah, there's not really much. I think we've done really well. I really do. I think we've filled, like you said earlier, filled most of the gaps that we were looking to fill. And I think the question would be playing the players in the right positions, and actually get the most out of the players, them adapting well. But I think from the profiles we're seeing, I think they're all players that can adapt pretty well. They're all sellable assets, I think, where, let's just use Jorge Grant and Ajew as a comparison. We've sent him out. We've not sent him out. We've got rid of him, and we've brought in Ajew. Like, clearly one's much more of a sellable asset. And I think we see that throughout kind of all of our swaps, I guess, player swaps from last season to this. So I think that's very positive. I don't think there's many questions I've got.
No. Just to go on to that, it's like, I think YouTube says, I don't agree on the right back situation we can cover till it becomes an issue. And I do. So my big on this is I'm not as stressed as or worried as perhaps other fans, but my more concern is that I think we can get away with it if we play with a back four, and I think McEntee is more than solid as a right back. I think Steinvender's more than solid as a right back, and then people worried maybe taking McEntee out of midfield, but the fact you've brought in Ajew, and you've got Magnuson, and you've got Cammy, you've got Benny, and then on the back you've got Hoff as well. So it's like, there's loads of depth in midfield. It's not just like you're taking McEntee out of midfield and the midfield's crumbling. So I don't think it's as big an issue, but no doubt if hopefully I will be eating my words by saying that, and there's more issues on the way.
And then I suppose with that as well, like we've spoken about, or we've been told about how JTA will be used to analyze our current squad and how well they perform. So you can guarantee that they've done some incredible analysis on our current options at right back to cover in right back, like Steinvender, McEntee, etc. And they've pretty much said, yeah, you're good enough. Yeah, you've got good enough options in the squad as backup. Probably, maybe not, but I doubt that they've said, no, you need a backup, and then we just ignored it, I guess,
Yeah.
If you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely. And next one I was going to say, this is certainly more interesting, positive. Which signing will prove the most significant?
It's a good question. I've been a massive fan of Kabore, and I know he's not played much. I personally think he's going to do really well. Significance-wise, we've seen Kizaridis come onto a game, and again, as one that I thought he should be starting more, and I think that he could add goals and assists in like every game he plays. He's just such an exciting, creative player. And then with the obvious one, Ajew as well. From what we've seen and what McInnes has said about him, I think, I'll probably go with him as our most significant player. Not just because of the kind of reputation he's come in with, but also it's an entirely different player in the middle of the park that we've been kind of missing for a little while, and it could be kind of the missing jigsaw piece, I guess, to a strong starting 11 or squad. So I'll go with the obvious Ajew, but wouldn't be surprised if likes of Kizaridis or Kabore were just the more surprising and less obvious choices.
Yeah, I think and even looking further ahead is potentially the Chesnikov and what he can. You've just got looking ahead to adding him in, and I think that's really, really exciting. I do agree with Agio. I think he's the obvious and the easy answer, just because I think he elevates the team, his quality and the different qualities he brings to the midfield. But it's a difficult one because some will, like for example, Kabori might not be immediate, or Kajota might not be immediate. They've got 3-year contracts. We might not see the best of them until 6 months or 12 months time, but it could be one where, for example, Casaredas just goes on a tear, and just the way that it operates, the moves on. Kajota's had a bit of adaptation, comes in and then takes on a really significant role. So all of them, it won't be linear, and they won't all follow the same paths. But yeah, I think Agio is hard to disagree. But YouTube Disciple says our new goalie is going to be crucial. That's certainly if again. That McInnes mentioned the need to keep clean sheets and the desire to keep clean sheets after the international break. Goalkeeper, on-form goalkeeper is massive for that. David Lewington, Braga, of course, he's been a fantastic addition. Greg says, snap prediction, Kizzy will be our most significant signing this summer and will end up a full Greek call-up. Wow, that is a big shout, but could be playing against Scotland. Oh no, that said, that those games are just coming up, so it might be a bit too soon. Mano Missy, hope we can sort the issue of shipping soft goals.
I think the comparison to Promise David is a bit annoying for Kabori, probably so much expectations. But when you look at his first season at USG, it took him like 13 games, I think, to get his first start, and then it kind of started working for him. So he wasn't an immediate difference maker, and he's come from the same league, made a step up. And yeah, it took him 13 games until he started being a significant player for them. So we might see something similar with Kabori, and it's a pretty lazy comparison, though, I think, but it's one that is worthwhile to mention, I suppose.
Just before we move on to Schwolow, and I'll bring in a couple of comments, Tom. Now that you've with the benefit of hindsight coming at the transfer window, when we first came into the transfer window, obviously there were some deals already happened or happening. And now to the point where we are, having closed the transfer window and played a few games, how happy are you with the squad as a whole, and how excited are you compared to maybe what you were a few months ago about the potential and prospect for this season with that squad?
Yeah, very excited. I didn't think we were going to make as many transfers as this. I thought we were going to be pretty sensible. Well, not sensible, but we're going to keep a strong core and maybe just bring in 5 or 6 starters instead of bringing in 11 potential starters. So yeah, it was we brought in much more than I expected, and I was kind of not against it at first, but I didn't think it was the right option. But yeah, I think I've been proven wrong. I think what we've done has been good. Very excited for the season. Yeah, I'm all for it, and very looking forward to the next few months, as long as it continues going well. I suppose.
I'll just bring in some comments before we move on to Schwolow. Bidigo, is attention going to turn to contracts? Any news on who will be getting sorted soon? Anything on Cammy renewal? I have not heard. I think there's been tentative discussions. I don't think there's anything concrete. There's quite a few players out of contract at the end of the season. I could imagine quite a few moving on. Just a lot of them probably have come to the end of their cycle at Hearts. I think Harry Milne's the obvious one for an extension, and he has got Hearts got an option with his deal when he came from Partick Thistle. Gamer X Live says, I think the right side of the pitch and the squad overall will look much more balanced when Borchgrevink is fit and Chesnikov arrives. That's something exactly what you wrote earlier in the summer, Tom, about the potential for them to have a good relationship. I'll bring that one in the end. And St Even B says there'll be January outs when a few players don't get game time. Yeah, I think Hearts will sign in January, but they're also, again, the main priority will be moving players on, which I think will happen and be natural in doing so. Right, Tom, Alexander Schwolow, the new Heart of Midlothian goalkeeper who could potentially make his debut against Rangers at Ibrox after the international break. What can you tell me a bit about him? Do you want me to bring up the stats just now, or do you want to talk about him in general?
Yeah, we'll just go on the stats quite quickly because so he's not played that much in the last 2 seasons. He's been a more of a backup goalie for, I've forgotten now, Union Berlin, right?
Yes, Union Berlin, yeah.
Yeah. So there wasn't much to look at in the last couple of seasons, so I ignored it. Instead, I went for the previous 3 seasons to try and see if there's a kind of any pattern. And there wasn't really, to be fair. Not huge. There's a little bit of a pattern, I suppose, but not a huge amount. Looking at this, it doesn't look too positive. We like seeing greens in these, but I don't think using data for goalies is as effective for outfield players.
Yeah,
there's not a huge amount you can look at.
Sorry to come out to interrupt you just on that. That's something that I've really noticed when using StatsBomb or Wisecout previously, is that when you've looked at the data and it doesn't really match the eye test at times, and it's difficult. So there's sometimes where you watch keepers, I think they've been really, really poor, and then you compare it to a goalkeeper who, like, with your own eyes, you can see he's been very, very good, makes some great saves, and it just doesn't quite marry up. So I always kind of take stats regarding goalkeepers with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so looking at him, he's playing in the Bundesliga with some of the best goalies in the world, as his peers that we're comparing him to. He's playing in teams. So these 3 seasons, he's played in teams previously, like Freiburg, I think finished 6th and 7th when he was there as a starting goalie. So like he's not always been in a relegation battle, but these 3 seasons, he was, I think the best he finished was about 16th or something. So, and then the most recent one, they got relegated, I believe. So a lot of this is maybe not down to him. Poor defenses and stuff like that as well. Like, for example, the last 2 seasons he's played regularly, he's had one of the highest shots against per 90, so his defense aren't doing very much to stop shots coming in, and you're looking at the likes of like Lewandowski taking those shots that he's trying to save. So it's a bit unfair to tar him, I can't even say that, by the data itself. So yeah, we don't really need to look at it too much, but it gives a kind of brief example of what he might bring. But yeah,
having watched him, and because I have read your thing, and I always think it's a really simple thing to do, but and this is like obviously just stating the obvious, but I think you can tell a hell of a lot about a goalkeeper by just watching the goals he concede.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I watched the last 40 goals he conceded. And there was I think one, I guess what you'd call a howler or clanger or whatever you would want to call it, but that was it. There was a couple soft goals, but not ridiculously soft, and then most of the chances, like most of the goals he conceded were brilliant strikes from players worth 20 million or whatever, or much more than that. There was a lot of times where his defense just let him down and he was hung out to dry basically and had absolutely no chance. It was a mix of just brilliant strikes, bad defending, couple soft goals, but nothing ridiculous. Nothing that I looked at him thinking, oh no, that's Joe Pereira in disguise or anything. So apart from those one, actually, he didn't concede. He didn't. I don't even want to mention this, but it was quite funny. A shot came into him and he saved it just down low right in front of him, and then it spun and it was spinning this way, and he was like looking like, where's that ball? And then he just stopped it before it went in. But apart from that, there was nothing else that was like, that was a big mistake. It was quite funny to watch. Not when I'm thinking he's going to be our goalie. It was quite funny to watch. It was like, it was pretty funny. Anyway,
Greg says, I always like the comparison Tom makes with former Hearts players. He gives me John McLaughlin vibes, albeit has played at a higher level and better with the ball at his feet.
Yeah, potentially a good comparison that. So, like, just to give a bit of a summary of what he reminded me of, what he looked like when I watched him, he was very solid. Just in general, all-round game was very solid. Pretty good hands, good shot stopper. He loves a camera save as well. He absolutely loves it. Must be the most acrobatic guy we've had on the pitch since Zlamal, probably. And yeah, that's he, when it comes to kind of commanding his box. I know someone mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
He's not going to, again, like Zlamal, I think, was probably the last one I can think who just didn't care who was in front of him. He'd just break people. He's not going to be like that, but he comes out when he needs to. He's a bit pragmatic or conservative when he does it, but he's not scared to do it, and he's decent at it. And then when the ball's at his feet, I think he's very comfortable with the ball at his feet. I think it's been a little bit of a frustration of mine this season, probably last season as well, where the ball gets played back and there's not that much pressure, but we first time clear out of the park, even under like little to no pressure.
Yep.
But with Schwolow, I think he's much more comfortable. He's looking, seeing where his options are. He's taking a touch and he's making those passes instead of, okay, there's a little bit of pressure on him, I'm going to punt up the park. He's only really doing that when he's like in the middle of his goal, the ball comes to him and he's got a decent amount of pressure, which is good. I think he's going to be pretty impressive with the ball at his feet. And then even when he's going long, actually, when he's deciding to go long, he's actually pretty accurate with his kicking when it's long as well. So he seems very comfortable with the ball at his feet. But like I said, it's all-round general. I don't think there's really many flaws. I think he's just a solid goalkeeper,
that's really just reliability. That's what you need. And Adam says noticeable improvement in the data in regards to his ball at his feet season on season. Always a welcome to add to a keeper, and that a long pass metric helps in games we need to up the pitch and to counter. And that's the big thing. It's like McInnes is happy to go long, be direct, and it's good to have that in his kicking arsenal, especially if it's more accurate than keepers that we've seen in the last couple of years in terms of that longer pass. Adam also
I guess it's going to help as well. Like when we recycle a ball quite often to the groans of the Tynecastle faithful, but if we've got a goalie who's able to do something with it, and it's not just going to be a pump back up the park, I think that's going to be better. I think he sits quite high. He's not a sweeper keeper, I wouldn't say, but he sits quite high up, I guess, and he's comfortable, distributing the ball. So I think when the ball's going back, it's not just going to be lost by punting it long. We're actually going to do something with it, I think, a little bit more often, which is, hopefully stop those moans and groans every time the ball goes back, because they frustrate me.
And Adam says 200 appearances in a top 5 league on a free makes him an absolute steal for me, especially given the responsibility he had in teams he was in with weak defences. Now, last question for you, Tom. Well, Liam says, who starts in goal at Ibrox in your opinion? Would you start Schwolow if you were deciding?
So on paper, yes, but then it depends. He didn't play much football the last 2 seasons, so if he comes in and impresses in the next couple of weeks in training, I don't see any reason why not. It might be a hard one just to drop him in to playing at Ibrox, which will be, knowing their results in the last few weeks, that's probably going to be a very toxic atmosphere. So could be very interesting for his first game. It's a hard one. Yeah, it really is a hard one. And I think it will probably be one that's decided in 10 days.
After some training,
yeah, it's not going to be decided yet. There's a bounce game up tomorrow, and I think we might have another one before. I'm just guessing we might have another bounce game in the next 10 days or whatever before. What's the next game? 2 Saturdays away is it now?
A week on Saturday, yeah.
Saturdays. We've got a little bit of time, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of football to be had and a lot of time for McInnes to evaluate him. So, but I think going forward, he'll be our starter, depending on what happens with Gordon, because I think Gordon is the number one currently, and it's his position to lose. But I could see him being the starter. Yeah.
I think I'm not sure I'd agree with it being Gordon's position to lose at the moment. I I think it's a position for everyone to win rather than lose. I don't think anyone's got possession of the number one. I think that's my view on the goalkeeping situation. Before we finish up, I'll just Paul Peaton says in terms of signings, they're all shite until proven otherwise. That's the Hearts way. Did laugh at that. YouTube disciple McInnes now has the window shut behind him and he can concentrate on what's in the camp. It's important for him to have an idea of his team now. I think that'll be big over especially the next 3 or 4 weeks where there's only 2 games in September as well. So that probably settle everything down. This is something that Brian might get you to do, Tom, in the coming weeks. Without prejudice, what do the stats predict as our best attacking options? I think once another couple of games are out of the way, I think that's quite good something to look at, and like who are the statistically the best 11 at Hearts. And finally, before we finish up, important comment said in the Vine, a wee mention for Jimmy Bowen, rest in peace, an important player for Hearts back in 83-85, a great folly for Robbo and set the blueprint for the impressive Clark and Robertson combo. We have got a colleague at the Herald. He has spoken to both Robbo and Gary Mackay about Jimmy Bowen, so there's going to be an interview going up about Jimmy Bowen and his impact on Hearts Standard over the next 24 hours. And so got a message just saying the person who wrote it hadn't realised how important Jimmy Bowen was in the derbies and that mentality and like Hearts not losing derbies. So I'm really looking forward to reading into that. So yeah, absolutely a mention for Jimmy Bowen. Hopefully his family are doing the best as they can do. Jimmy Bowen played, I think it was 70 games across his time at Tynecastle. We will leave it there. Tom, thank you very much for your input. Like I said, Schwolow's will be analysis will be up at some point tomorrow. Be sure to check out heartstandard.co.uk. I've written in depth about the squad analysis and the transfer business is done. I need to go in at some point and update the images now that Adam Forrester is set to return to St Johnstone. There'll be plenty coming out over the next few days, both kind of transfer window related and not. And I just see whatever happens. There's obviously a bounce game tomorrow. Until then, thank you very much, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful evening, and we will be back again later on in the week.